Welcome to the Red Story, and just subscribe so I understand that everything is not in vain. I accompanied Sarah to meet her mother for the first time, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. As we approached her mother's house, I gave Sarah's hand a gentle squeeze, reassuring her that everything would be fine. Sarah's mother greeted us at the door with a warm smile, but I couldn't help but notice the way her eyes lingered on me, appraising me from head to toe. She invited us inside, and we settled into the cozy living room. As we chatted over coffee, I did my best to charm Sarah's mother, sharing stories about my life and my aspirations for the future. I could see Sarah beaming with pride as her mother laughed at my jokes and nodded approvingly at my plans. However, as the conversation progressed, I started to feel uneasy. Sarah's mother's gaze seemed to linger on me a bit too long, and her questions became more personal, bordering on inappropriate. She asked about my previous relationships and my experience with women, all while leaning forward, her eyes fixed on mine. I tried to steer the conversation back to safer topics, but Sarah's mother seemed determined to keep the focus on me. At one point, she placed her hand on my knee, giving it a gentle squeeze as she complimented my physique. I glanced at Sarah, hoping she would intervene, but she seemed oblivious to her mother's behavior, too caught up in the excitement of introducing me to her family. As we said our goodbyes, Sarah's mother pulled me into a tight hug, her hands roaming over my back in a way that felt far too intimate. I pulled away, feeling a mix of discomfort and confusion. On the drive home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I wanted to believe that Sarah's mother was simply being friendly, but her actions seemed to suggest something more. I knew I would have to address this with Sarah eventually, but for now, I focused on the joy of having won her mother's approval, hoping that it would be enough to build a strong foundation for our future together. As I gazed into Sarah's eyes, I knew with unwavering certainty that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Her love, support, and unwavering loyalty had become the foundation of my existence. I meticulously planned every detail of the proposal, determined to make it a moment she would cherish forever. On a starlit evening, I led Sarah to a secluded spot in the park where we had shared our first kiss. The soft glow of candlelight illuminated the area, casting a romantic ambience. As I got down on one knee, my heart raced with anticipation. I took her hand in mine, looking deep into her eyes as I poured out my heart. Sarah, from the moment I met you, I knew my life would never be the same. You have brought so much joy, laughter, and love into my world. I cannot imagine spending a single day without you by my side. Will you make me the happiest man alive and marry me? Tears of joy streamed down Sarah's face as she whispered a resounding yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing our love and commitment to each other. Our wedding day was a beautiful, intimate affair surrounded by our closest family and friends. As Sarah walked down the aisle, radiant in her white gown, I felt my heart swell with love and pride. We exchanged vows, promising to love, cherish, and support each other through all of life's ups and downs. As we settled into married life, Sarah continued working at the bar. While I trusted her completely, my protective nature and desire to prioritize our well-being sometimes caused me discomfort. The thought of her being in an environment where alcohol flowed freely and patrons might not always respect boundaries made me uneasy. However, I knew that Sarah was passionate about her job and that it brought her fulfillment. I respected her decision and supported her, knowing that our love and the strength of our bond would overcome any challenges. I focused on being her rock, her safe haven, and her biggest cheerleader, always ready to lend an ear or offer a comforting embrace after a long shift. The night started like any other, with Sarah heading off to work at the bar while I settled in at home, looking forward to a quiet evening. Little did I know that this night would be the beginning of a nightmare that would shatter my world and forever change the course of our lives. It was well past midnight when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it only to find a series of images that made my blood run cold. There, in grainy but unmistakable detail, was Sarah, my beloved wife, locked in a passionate embrace with a man I didn't recognize. The timestamp on the photos indicated that this had happened just hours ago while she was supposed to be working. I felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under me. My heart raced and my mind spun with a million questions. How could Sarah do this to me, to us? Had our entire marriage been a lie? I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but the evidence was right there in front of me, undeniable and damning. The message that accompanied the photos was equally shocking. The sender claimed to be Sarah's coworker and demanded a substantial sum of money in exchange for their silence. They threatened to expose Sarah's infidelity to our friends, family, and even her employer if I didn't comply. I sat there, stunned and numb, trying to process the betrayal and the blackmail. My world had been turned upside down in an instant, and I had no idea what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Sarah immediately, to demand an explanation and to see the truth in her eyes. But another part of me, the rational, methodical part, knew that I needed to tread carefully. I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I had to gather more evidence to ensure that this wasn't some cruel hoax or misunderstanding, and I had to find a way to handle the blackmail without putting our lives and reputations at risk. As I stood there, clutching the damning evidence in my trembling hands, I felt a storm of emotions raging inside me. Betrayal, anger, and an overwhelming sense of pain consumed my every thought. I couldn't believe that Sarah, the woman I had loved and trusted with every fiber of my being, had shattered our vows and destroyed our marriage. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself as I heard the front door open. Sarah walked in, her face etched with a mixture of exhaustion and something else I couldn't quite place. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and I saw a flicker of guilt cross her features. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I held up the photos, my hands shaking with barely contained fury. "I think you know exactly what's wrong, Sarah. How could you do this to me? To us?" Sarah's eyes widened as she recognized the images, and she took a step back, her face pale. "Jake, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, my voice rising with each word. "How you betrayed me, how you threw away everything we had for some cheap thrill with a stranger." Tears began to stream down Sarah's face, but I couldn't find it in myself to feel any sympathy. The pain of her betrayal was too raw, too all-consuming. "It was a mistake, Jake. I swear it meant nothing. I love you and only you," she pleaded, reaching out for me. I recoiled from her touch as if it were poison. "Love? You don't know the meaning of the word. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have lied to me, made a fool of me." Sarah's sobs grew louder, but I couldn't hear them over the roaring in my ears. The future we had planned together, the life we had built, it all seemed like a cruel joke now. "I can't do this, Sarah. I can't look at you without seeing what you've done, without feeling this pain," I said, my voice breaking. "Please, Jake, don't say that. We can work through this. I'll do anything to make it right," she begged, her eyes desperate. But I knew deep down that there was no coming back from this. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I felt myself shutting down, my heart hardening with each passing second. "I need time, Sarah, time to think, to process all of this. I can't be around you right now. I don't know if I ever can be again," I said, my voice cold and distant. Sarah's face crumpled, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I turned away from her, grabbing my keys and heading for the door. I needed to get out, to breathe, to try and make sense of the ruins of my life. As I stepped out into the night, I felt a strange sense of numbness wash over me. The anger and pain were still there, but they were muted now, buried beneath a layer of ice. I knew that our relationship would never be the same, that the damage was irreparable. And as I walked away from the home we had shared, I wondered if I would ever be able to trust again. As I drove through the night, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The betrayal, the anger, the pain, they all swirled together, threatening to consume me. I found myself heading towards the one place I knew I could find some semblance of comfort: Sarah's mother's house. When I arrived, she opened the door, her face etched with concern. "Jake, what's wrong? You look awful," she said, ushering me inside. I collapsed onto her couch, the weight of my world crashing down upon me. "It's Sarah," I managed to choke out. "She cheated on me." Sarah's mother sat beside me, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she would do something like that." As the tears began to fall, she pulled me into her arms, holding me as I sobbed. Her embrace was warm, comforting, and I found myself clinging to her like a lifeline in a stormy sea. Over the next few weeks, I found myself spending more and more time with Sarah's mother. She was a beacon of light in the darkness that had become my life. We talked for hours, sharing stories and laughter. I began to feel a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. One evening, as we sat together on our porch, sipping wine and watching the sunset, something shifted between us. Our eyes met, and before I knew what was happening, our lips crashed together in a passionate kiss. We both pulled away, breathless and stunned. "Jake, we can't," she whispered, but I could see the desire in her eyes. "I know," I replied, my voice hoarse with emotion, "but I can't help how I feel. You've been there for me in ways and no one else has. I think I'm falling for you." She hesitated for a moment, then pulled me back into her arms, our bodies melting together as we gave in to the forbidden attraction that had been building between us. We kept our affair a secret, stealing moments together whenever we could. But as the weeks turned into months, Sarah began to notice the change in our relationship. The lingering glances, the hushed conversations, the way we seemed to gravitate towards each other whenever we were in the same room. One day, as I was leaving her mother's house, Sarah confronted me. "What's going on between you two?" she demanded, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as I looked at her, the woman who had shattered my heart. "What's the matter, Sarah? Don't like the taste of your own medicine?" She recoiled as if I had slapped her. "How could you? With my own mother?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You're one to talk about betrayal, Sarah. You started this. You broke us. And now you have to live with the consequences. As I walked away, leaving a stunned and devastated Sarah in my wake, I felt a strange sense of emptiness. I had sought revenge and I had found it, but at what cost? I had become the very thing I despised, a betrayer, a liar. And as I drove off into the night, I wondered if I would ever be able to find my way back to the man I once was. I knew I had to be smart about this. I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment, not when there was so much at stake. I needed to be methodical, decisive, and most importantly, I needed to protect myself. I reached out to a lawyer, one of the best in town. We met in his office and I laid out everything that had happened. Sarah's infidelity, my discovery of her affair, and my own indiscretions with her mother. He listened intently, taking notes and asking questions, his expression neutral and professional. Jake, he said, leaning forward in his chair, based on what you've told me, we have a strong case for divorce. Sarah's infidelity gives us the upper hand, and if we play our cards right, we can ensure a favorable outcome for you. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. That's what I want. I want to make sure I come out of this on top. Sarah doesn't deserve anything from me, not after what she did. We spent the next few weeks strategizing, going over every detail of my exit plan. I gathered evidence of Sarah's affair, screenshots of texts and emails, receipts from the gifts she had bought for her lover. I had opened a separate bank account and started funneling money into it bit by bit, so Sarah wouldn't notice. Finally, the day arrived. I walked into our house, divorce papers in hand, my head held high. Sarah was in the kitchen, and when she saw me, her face paled. "Jake, what's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. I slapped the papers down on the counter in front of her. "I'm done, Sarah. I want a divorce, and I want you out of this house today." She stared at me, her mouth agape. "You can't be serious. Jake, please, let's talk about this." I laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "Hawk, you lost the right to talk the moment you betrayed me with another man. I'm not going to be some pathetic person who begs for scraps from his cheating wife. I'm better than that. I deserve better than that." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I felt no pity for her. She had brought this on herself, and now she had to face the consequences. "You have until the end of the day to pack your things and get out," I said, my voice firm and unyielding. "If you're not gone by then, I'll have the cops remove you. And don't even think about trying to take anything that's mine. The lawyer will be in touch about the division of assets." With that, I turned and walked out, leaving Sarah to wallow in the mess she had created. I felt a sense of pride, a sense of power. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Sarah, take that away from me again. As I walked into the bar, my head held high despite the whispers and stares that followed me. I knew news of the divorce had spread like wildfire. It seemed like everyone had an opinion on what had happened, but I refused to let their gossip and judgment get to me. I had been through a lot and come out the other side stronger than ever. I sat down at the bar and ordered a drink, ignoring the curious glances from the other patrons. I could hear them talking about me, speculating about what had led to the end of my marriage. Some of them even had the nerve to approach me, offering their condolences or asking for details. But I shut them down quickly, making it clear that I wasn't interested in their pity or their questions. As I sipped my drink, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the hurt, the anger, it had all been so overwhelming at first. But I refused to let it break me. I had focused on my own healing, on rebuilding my life and my sense of self. And slowly but surely, I had begun to move forward. It hadn't been easy, of course. There had been days when the pain had been almost unbearable, when I had wanted nothing more than to crawl into a hole and never come out. But I had to force myself to keep going, to keep pushing through the darkness, and with each passing day, I had grown stronger and more resilient. Now, as I sat in the bar surrounded by people who thought they knew my story, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had survived the worst thing that had ever happened to me, and I had come out the other side a better man. I wasn't going to let anyone else's opinions or judgments dictate my path forward. This was my life, and I was going to live it on my own terms. I finished my drink and stood up, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road to healing and growth was a long one, but I was determined to walk it with my head held high. And no matter what anyone else might say or think, I knew that I had the strength and resilience to overcome anything that came my way. I walked out of the bar, my head held high and my resolve unshakable. The divorce papers had been signed, and I was officially a free man. Free from the lies, the betrayal, and the pain that had consumed my life for far too long. As I made my way down the street, I couldn't help but think about Sarah and the way she had begged for forgiveness. She had cried and pleaded, promising that she would change, that she would never hurt me again. But her words fell on deaf ears. I had heard it all before, and I wasn't going to fall for it again. I had given Sarah everything, my love, my trust, my devotion. And what had she done? She had thrown it all away for a cheap thrill, a moment of passion with some random guy from the bar. It was unforgivable, and I would never forget the pain she had caused me. But I refused to let her actions define me. I was strong and independent. I didn't need anyone else to complete me or make me happy. I had my own dreams, my own goals, and I was going to pursue them with everything I had. As I walked, I couldn't help but think about all the people out there who would have taken Sarah back in a heartbeat. They would have forgiven her, made excuses for her behavior, and let themselves be used and hurt all over again. But not me. I had too much self-respect for that. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Starting over was never simple, and there would be challenges and obstacles along the way. But I was ready for them. I had been through a lot and come out the other side stronger than ever before. And so, with a deep breath and a determined stride, I set off into the unknown. The future was mine to shape, and I was going to make it a bright one. No matter what life threw at me, I knew that I had the strength and resilience to overcome it all. Because that's just who I am, a survivor, a fighter, and a person who knows their own worth.